Yes, students, let's get started now. So as usual, if you have any question, you can ask me by unmuting and talking. And I've also shared this Google Sheet where you can put your question. Let me just check if you have any question there. So remember there was MEF 2107 queries, which I've shared with you already. So I can't see any questions here. If there's anything, you can write it here. You would find the link to the document in your email. So if there's anything you can, but if I prefer if you just unmute and speak, that's best. Yeah. And I'll wait for some time. If you have any question, I can take them up. In the meantime, I'm just sharing the screen based on where we are currently. Remember, in the practical class today, we've looked at this kind of operators, increment operator. We also looked at increment operator. We've discussed in details the while loop and the for loop. So we'll go on these topics again today. And I would want also to discuss Scanf, so some new concepts. But before we go to that, did you face any problem in today's class or based on the discussions that have been said to you in pre-recorded videos? So if there's anything, let me know. So I give you a few minutes. If there's any question, you let me know before I move ahead. Like I said, in today's session, it's very important that you be hands-on. I've seen today, based on how you started programming, it seems you did not actually start programming, but I hope today's session would have been useful for you to get started into writing small pieces of code, and then we can build on that. So as we go along in today's session, slides, there'll be questions which I won't solve for you, but I want to discuss how to develop the program with you, and then I expect you to now do these things in your time at home or in the next class you would have next week. So you have opportunity if you don't have the resources at home to do it. But like I said at the very start of this module, you have to be hands-on here and be testing and testing programs, getting maybe some error messages and trying to solve it. Over time, you'll find that these error messages are reducing. Means the first time you write a program, you would not be doing I won't say silly mistakes, but you would have learn the syntax of C and able to know how to write a while loop, how to declare variables, how to do assignment, and how to use an if, for example, for. Then it's a question now of deciding when to use which syntax and which construct to be able to solve a given problem. Like we'll be seeing some problems today. I give a couple of problems today in class. For example, a very simple one was to print 1 to 10. So it's a very simple problem definition. When you're given a problem definition, it's up to you now to see how you can represent, of course, a problem definition using pseudocode or flowchart. You've seen how to do that. But now next step would be how to actually code this flowchart or pseudocode in the C programming language, run it and execute it, and then be able to test whether the program is running correctly or not. If you have syntax errors in your program, the compiler will flag them out. For example, if you miss out a semicolon or you don't declare variable and then you just use it straight away, the compiler will flag out these errors. These are called syntax errors. But on the other hand, there are errors which are not syntax, means your syntax is fine, but when you run your code, you don't get the expected results. Yeah, so these are something to do with the way you've solved the problem. So typically, how do you test whether your program is running or not is by doing test runs using inputs which you know should produce a given output. You just run them through your program and then you see your output. If you're getting what you want, that's fine. If not, then you need to go in depth of a program. Maybe there are problems with your formula, or like we've seen, are you doing integer division and so on. So you would maybe need to put some more printf in your program to actually do the debugging. It's like you're now a detective, you have put the hat of a detective, you're going inside your code and seeing what is going wrong. Yeah. So this can be done very easily using printf. Yeah. As you go along, when you get more complex programs, you'll find that inserting printf allows you to actually do a good program trace, and then based on the output you're getting at intermediate stages in your program, you can see where in the code is working fine and where the errors are creeping in. Okay? So if there's any question along, so I'm just going to introduce some new concepts here based on what we discussed today, and some new concepts which I have not discussed before. So if there's any question at any time, I would invite you to just unmute and ask questions. I would appreciate that if you do that. It's more interactive class. I don't just like to just speak. It's good if you just unmute and speak. Okay. Actually, I'm recording this session, so I'll be sending this afterwards to you, especially the concepts which are Which one? Yeah. So any question before we start? So I just give you a few minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask. Or you can send by chat, or you can put in that query document I've shared a Google, a Google Word document, Word document where you can input your queries. Okay. Okay, so I'll just continue. If there's any question, let me know. Just unmute and you can speak. Okay. So we've seen any question. I can see some. I can hear some voices. So is there any question? At some point when we are discussing, I'll be actually sending maybe codes beforehand. I will expect you to write. So I'm going to give specific students some code to write beforehand, and then to share the screen and then to explain us. So at some stage this is going to come. I don't fake anyone of you. If you have issues with maybe you don't have a C programming language, you have to let me know. Maybe then we can work in groups. We decide this. So at this point, I'm saying I'll be sending out some questions and assigning it to students. You should be able to write the code in the dev C++ programming environment, and then share your screen and explain your code, and then we can debug it together. Okay, so this is going to come later. Now, in today's practical class, for both groups, we've looked at the increment operator. Yep. So we've seen instead of writing NC is equal to NC plus 1, whenever you're incrementing by 1, you can simply use the increment operator plus plus. Yep. So we've seen that. So this is one example here where increment operator is being used. We've looked at this construction already here. So this program is basically asking the user to input some characters, because getShow is going to get a character and compare it to the N05 character, which is generated when you press Ctrl Z. So if you've seen the previous video, you would have seen that. So one important comment is you can see the while loop has no opening and closing brace. It means it is attached to only one statement. So only the plus plus NC here is attached to the while loop. The printf is not inside the while loop. That's a very important observation. It means as long as you are inputting a character which is not an of 5 character, it's going to increment the counter here. And C is like a counter, the number counter or character counter. And then when you press a Ctrl Z and this becomes now false. Yep. So this is going to step out of a while loop and print only once the number of characters you have input. So this program is basically counting, like you're seeing in the comment, count characters input. Yep. Okay, so I would invite you to code this kind of simple program here and be able to run it, and that will give you confidence. Yeah, so I think we've discussed these different lines. This one is counting the number. So here is a new construction using the if. So in a few minutes, I'm going to introduce that down the line. But this is simply using a syntax here to check whether the character you have input is actually equal to the carriage line. Remember when you have /n, and why it is in single inverted commas here, because this is a character. This is one character actually. /n is not 2 characters, it's 1 character in the character map. Yeah. So you're checking whenever the input that you have pressed on the keyboard, the user has input on by pressing on the keyboard. If you press enter, the /n characters form. So again, it is in single inverted commas because it's 1 character. Okay, so this line is checking whether the character you have input is the carriage line character. If so, then it is incrementing the NL. So in this way, NL is counting the number of lines, because when you press enter, you are actually changing line. Yep. So same comment here. The plus plus NL here is incrementing a counter. Don't worry about the if for the time being. We'll look at that in a few minutes. But basically, this code is incrementing NL, which is initially 0 every time you press enter. If you press any other character, it's not going to increment the NL until you press the N05 character, which is Ctrl Z. It means now you're ending the file. And then the printf is not inside the if, it's not inside the while even, because there's no opening and closing parentheses. Okay, so this printf will be running once when the while loop has been exited, because you want to print the number of lines at the end of the program. You don't want to print the number of lines every time you're pressing enter. That's not the aim here. The aim is, let's say you're writing a paragraph, you're pressing enter throughout writing the paragraph. This program is allowing you, it is measuring or counting the number of times you press enter. That's okay. Now, let's move on to Scanf now. It's a very important function which you will use extensively in your programs. So Scanf is a counterpart of printf. We've used printf already in the very first program we've learned together. So printf is to send characters on the screen. Yeah, and we've seen printf is quite powerful. It allows you to print just text, which is very useful if you are sending instructions to the user what he needs to do. That's very important. Instead of having a blinking cursor, it's not very useful. But we've seen printf also allows you to print the values of characters using format specifiers like %d, %f, %c, and so on. So we'll keep having new format specifiers as we go along. But what you've learned till now is %d for integers, %f for floating point numbers, and %c for characters. But we'll learn of this as we go along. Okay. Now, what does what does Scanf allow you to do? It allows you to do the opposite now. You're not sending data on the screen, you're actually getting data from the user. So we've seen a program, a function already doing that called getChar, but getChar is restricted to only one character, like enter, spacebar, A, B, C, D, not numbers and not strings, okay, or text. So Scanf is much more powerful than getChar here. Scanf allows you to read a whole range of numbers. Let's say I want to input 1 million. Scanf allow me to read 1 million at one go, not one character, but the whole number. Similarly, Scanf will allow me to read text and numbers, integer numbers, and so on. So let's see how Scanf works. Okay, so I'm going to shift to Dev C++ in a few minutes to just run through some programs. This is the way Scanf is written. Yep, as usual, it's a statement. So you're going to edit by semicolon. You can see here, like printf, you have double inverted commas and then a comma. And then if you are requesting the user to input an integer, you would use %d. If you are requesting the user for floating point number, %f, and so on. So it is very similar to what you did in printf. Now, one new character you're seeing here is ampersand character here. Okay, ampersand character, you can see it's an N character. So ampersand character here is used in C. So at this point, we are not yet covered the chapter on pointers. It's a quite advanced materials in C. So we're not covering pointers yet. We'll do that later. But for the time being, just to explain why you have this ampersand here, ampersand is used in C to specify the address of a variable. So let's say you live at a particular place in your village or in this particular town, you have an address for your house. So you live in your house, fine, but your house has an address. So similarly, if you are declaring a variable, the variable would have a certain location in memory. So this location in memory needs to have an address. So this is what ampersand is used here, is to actually give the address of the variable, not the value of the variable, but its address. So Scanf uses the address of variables to assign. So basically this line is saying here is asking the user to input an integer, and the value which is going to be input by the user is going to be stored in the variable count. That's what this line is doing. So Scanf doesn't use just count. So you could ask the question, why we just don't put count here like in printf? When you want to print the value of integer, we just give a name of the variable. But the way the Scanf function is written, it doesn't use the variable name itself, it uses address of the variable. It's just a question when we cover the chapter on pointers, this will become clear why we are dealing with the address of a variable. So for the time being, just bear in mind, when you are using Scanf, you would use ampersand operator, which is actually giving to Scanf the address of the variable where you want to store the value being requested from the user. Okay. So this simple example here is again asking the user for to input an integer because %d and to store it in a variable of integer type or count, and we are passing it here its address. Okay, let's look at this simple example here before we shift to Dev C++. So you can see here the lines above. This one is new here. You can say you are including a new header file called conio.h. Now, why you're including this new header file, stdio.h, you've already seen, is because we need it for printf. And Scanf also is actually documented or present in the stdio.h header file. So these two would need stdio.h, but you can find a function here called clear screen. So clear screen is a function which is used to actually refresh the screen. Let's say you have run your program several times, it is creating lots of text on the screen. Now you want to have a blank screen to start some new output. then you can say clear screen. So CLR, SCR, depending on the compiler. Sometimes it's just CLC, so we depend on the compiler. You can test that on the particular dev C++ environment you have. So this function here, clear screen, is found in color.h. This is why you're including this function here. Okay, so let's look at this program here. You are declaring now a variable called A of integer type. You're declaring a variable of called B of floating point type, and then somewhere you're saying printf. Now, very important, just like for getchar, you would need to give some information to the user, what is expected from a user. You can't just have a scanf and the cursor is going to blink, the user doesn't even know what to do. So this is why we have this line here, printf, enter any two numbers. This line is going to appear to the user, and then the cursor will start blinking. The user would know, yes, I need to input two numbers. Now, this line here for scanf is a bit more advanced here to what we just seen before. Since you are requesting for two numbers, the first number is integer, so this is what's percentage D. The second number which you are inputting is a floating point number, B, and then you assign this, so you have the address of A and address of B. Like I've just said, for scanf, you use addresses of variable instead of the variables themselves. So this program is simply requesting the user for two numbers and then printing the numbers. The getchar we've seen before, you can see here it is get ch. In some compilers it is getchar. This is simply to wait for the output screen to wait that you can see the output. Yep, on the screen. We've seen that today in today's class. Okay. Now there's a small exercise for you to do, so you can do that in your own time later. So I'm going to shift in a few minutes to dev C++ just to illustrate scanf. So let's look at this program here just to give you some information how you can write a piece of code for that. So write a C program to request the user to input the radius and height of a cone. So request the user to input, it means you need scanf. You need to use scanf to ask the user input the radius, you store it in a variable. You again ask the user now input the height of a cone, you store that in another variable. Now radius could be decimal numbers, height could also be floating point numbers. So most likely your radius and your height variables would be of floating point numbers. And then using these values for radius and height, you are able now to calculate the volume using the formula, the volume of a cone, so 1/5 pi squared h. And then you can also calculate the curved surface areas pi or L, where L is a slant height. So you're able now to calculate these two values and display to the user. So this is one program which I would invite you to write. But before we do that, let me show you how to use scanf. Okay. So I'm just now sharing the screen for the dev C++ environment. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen here. So I'm just going to write a normal program. So let's say include str.h. I don't need cone.h. I'm not going to use clear screen here. And then let's start. Typically we do that and then opening brace. So here, let's say simple program. I have just one variable called A. Okay, at this point, I don't want to put the value of A in the program itself. I want it to come from the user. So I will put a printf here. I will say to the user, enter the value of E. Yep. So this is just a printf. There's nothing to put here as format specified because it's a message to the user on the screen. Next line, now you can say scanf. So since your input, you're asking the user to input the value of an integer, you say %d. And then you give the address of A, means this is where you want to store the value input by the user. So if you have a code like this, then you can just have a printf here just to cross-check if value is fine or not. So I'm just going to change line here so that you go to the next line based on what you had earlier. You had the first printf without any /n, so it's not going to change the line. Now I'm changing the line so that the value is printed. You could also have two change of lines if you want. So here you're changing lines 2 times. Okay, then you can say here, for example, value entered for A is, okay, now %d. This we know very well since you want to print the value of an integer, %d, and then you give the value A here. So again, I'm highlighting that in scanf is the address of A, in printf is just the name of a variable. You need to use it that way because that's the way these functions have been written. Let's just try to compile here. I'm just going to save the programs first. Let's call this one. I'm just going to save it as .c that I highlighted today, and let's call this one program scan. Yeah, and it's .c. So I'm saving that in in source code. So I have a folder on my laptop to save that. So after saving, let's try to compile and see if there's any errors here. On my laptop, I do have AVG antivirus, so back then, so errors is 0 and warnings are 0. Let me try to run it now. So the first time takes a bit of time for me because the antivirus will try to check some stuff. Yeah, I'm just going to upload it. I'm going to share the upload screen a few minutes with you. It's taking some time to for the antivirus to check it. I'm just going to share the upload screen with you. So it should say enter the value of A for us to start. Yeah, so it's working now. It will just take time to check. Okay, so I can set it. Okay, I'm going to run it again now just because it's exited. Okay, so let me just run it. Yeah, I'm going to share the screen now with you. So this is what we are getting. Yeah, so I hope now you can see. So enter is the value of A. So let's say it's an integer. So I put at 50. Yep, so I put 50 and then it's saying the value for A is 50. Yep, so very simple program, but it's illustrating the fact that I could store the value of 50 using Scanf. That is what I want to illustrate here. Okay. Let me share back the DevSocials environment. Yep. So let's build on this program here to do some further things. So if you have now a floating port number, let's say float B, then you can of course have something very similar to that and just input the value of B. Just do it separately, just for understanding here. So value of B, and then now it's percentage F because it's a floating point number, and then you're storing it in B. Yep. So value entered for A and B. So now it's percentage D is the first one, and the second one is going to be percentage F. Yep. And then you have to put the value of A and B. Yep, very simple program, but it allows you to develop the competence to input a value from the user and use it. So yep, so I'm just waiting for, yeah. So let me just share the screen with you. What is else here? Okay, so you're saying enter the value of A, let's say I put 100, and then enter the value of B, I can put something like 5.6, and here's printing the two values for me. Yeah, so we could now request the user for two values and print it. Now, based on the program we've covered today, let me just extend that program here to give some new features which you can use in C. Okay, so I'm just going here to delete these things and just say int A, and then what we did today was something like this. So we use the for loop for I is equal to 0. Sorry, I'm not saying use I here. A for A is equal to 0. So we've done that. A less than or equal to 10, something like this. So we want to stop at 10, and then we say the plus plus E. Yeah, so we used I earlier, but that's not the problem. And then for each one of them, we printed slash n here. I put percentage D because an integer, and then we know how to print. Yeah, so we did that in class today, and most of you could get it fine. So what I'm saying here in this program here, you can see the value of 10 here is fixed. So if you just run that, okay, and then we run it. Okay, so if I just share the screen, so we've done that today. Most of we got the values, so this is what we got. Yeah, so here we're printing the value from 0 to 10. That's fine. But what I want to highlight here is the value of 10 here. You can say is fixed in your code. There's no way you can modify that. So what you can do now, maybe you can define a new variable x max here, and then you can also use a printf, enter the number to enter the number to stop at something like this. Yeah. So let's say you don't want to stop at 10. You want the program to be dynamic to ask the user where you want to stop. So this is the printf, and then we just learned scanf. So we can have scanf now, and we know max is an integer value, so percentage d, and then we assign it to max, so the address of max, and we store it here. So at this point, it means we have been able to ask the user for a maximum value, and then this now will not be 10. I'm going to put max here. Yep, so you can see now your code is no more static. It allows the user to interact and to give his own value, and then it should display the value up to what the user has given. Let's see if that works. I'm just going to share the screen with you again. I mean, I need to run it again. Okay, I'm just going to share the screen. Okay, so I hope you can see here saying enter number to stop at. Let's say I want to stop at 25. So now it's up to 25. Yeah. So the code you've written today in the lab was fixed to 10, but now you are able to run the program any number of times you want and use different numbers. Yeah. So if you wanted to run it with 100 or any number, so you can do. Yep. So this is a new feature I've introduced to the Scanf. So I would encourage you to start using it now to get values from the user. This will be used extensively. So I'm shifting back to the lecture notes now. So you should be able to write a program like this now, where you're requesting the user for the radius. You store it in a variable, which you have declared, of course, before. Same thing for the height. So you would give a message to the user, enter the radius of the code, assign it to a variable, which is it's a variable name. It doesn't need to be radius. It could be R, it could be RAD, and anything up to you to give a name. Similarly, the variable for the height could be height itself, or it could be H, or anything OHT, up to you. But important, whatever you declare, of course, you have to use it in Scanf the same name as a compiler will complain. Once you are able to get the values of radius and the height stored in variables, then you can now maybe declare a third variable called volume. It could be VOL or capital V, and a second variable called curve surface area. You could call it area. So using the radius and height, you just calculate now using multiplication, division for the formula which we have said before. Calculate the values for the volume and the curve surface area code, and then display the values to the user. So I'm leaving that to you. So next week I'm going to look at that in the lab. Okay. Now let's just move on now and discuss the what is control flow. So till now we have looked at repeated loops, so the while loop and the for loop. To repeat a loop. Now control flow. Remember when we had your when you look at your flow chart and whatever you have diamonds where you need to take decision yes no, so we have to check whether something is this value or that value. So this is a control flow. So typically this is use whatever you have yes no in your flow chart, like I said. So let's see how do we do that control flow. In C it's used using the if control flow statement. This is how it's implemented. So this expression you find here is something very similar to what you've used with the while loop. Remember in the while loop, you have this checking which you do, whether it's true or false. So very similar here, you would have an expression here, whether a value is less than 10, more than 10, equal to 10, less or not equal to 10, and so on. So this expression here would be evaluated to true or false. If the outcome of the expression is true, then the statement will be executed. Else, in that case, if you have if else, so if that is not executed, then this one will be executed. But you can also write an if without an else. It could just be if and finish. So if that condition is true, you do statement one, else you don't do anything else. If you want to write a construct like this, it means you always want to do either statement one or statement two. It's up to you. For example, let's look at the code here. So it's not the full program. Of course, you would have X, which is defined before. You would have your header file, you have void main and your curly braces. You would have declared X. At some point, you would give X a value. And then this code is saying here, maybe the user is inputting a value for X. This simple piece of code here is checking whether X is positive or negative. So if the value of X was positive, this becomes true. If let's say I put a value of X of 5, 5 is greater than or equal to 0, that's true. So this part will be executed, not this one. If that's not true, then it becomes else. Then the number is negative, will be printed on the screen. So it means the second option. But what I'm trying to say here, you don't necessarily need to have the else part. You could just have the if part. Okay. So in case this is what you've seen earlier, yep, same thing. Yep. So in case there are more than one statement to be executed for a given expression, the statement should be enclosed in braces. Like we've seen for the while loop, remember in today's session, we said if you have, let's say, attached to a while loop, you have 2 or more statements, then you would need to use the curly braces. But if you have only one statement, you don't need to use curly braces. The same thing for the if statement. Now you will notice after the expression there's just semicolon, just like for the for loop, for the while loop. These are not statements. The if, while, for, they're not statements. They are constructs to actually link statements together. Yeah? So here this statement definitely would be ending with a semicolon when we start doing that. Let's look at this simple example here of the application of the if. So if you have more than, we have just seen if else, but if you have much more conditions to test, let's say this one is saying if temperature is greater than 27. Again, this is part of a code. It's not the full code. Above, you would have a variable declared as temperature, and maybe you request the user for temperature, or you would have a sensor which is connected to a microcontroller which is feeding the temperature to your program. Then this is going to be automatically sensed from the environment and checked here. So let's say we already have the value of temperature. This line is saying if temperature is greater than 27, print this this line. It's saying uncomfortable, need HVAC. So if that is not true here, then it's going to check for this one. Else if. So if temperature is not greater than 27, let's say I put a value of 26, then this one will become true. Okay, else if, else if, else if, else if, and so on. So this you use else if when you have multi checks you want to do. Okay. Now, one program which I'm asking you to do now, based on your own grades, when you get marks for modules, typically you get grade A+, you get A, and so on. So you know the range for this. So I would want to write for you to write a simple C program which asks a user for the marks of a given module, and then using the if else if display the grade the student has got. Yeah. So this is something straightforward, and so I would request you to write this one using Scanf. And then you're writing the first one for next week. This one is a simple program. This one we'll discuss together. Yeah, these two together. So I don't want to give too many homework as well. So this is what I'm expecting from you for next lab session next Wednesday. So make sure you write these two programs and come with programs. I hope you are able to do it. As even if it's not working, you can come with your code, and then we can discuss what is working or not. Okay. Now, this session will end in 1 minute, so I'm here to take your further questions. I will start the same Zoom meeting again in case you have any question. Yeah, but that's what I want to cover today. Again, I've recorded this session, so I'm going to say it to you afterwards. So we've covered here using the, just to recap before it closes. So we've discussed the Scanf today, very powerful function from the stdio.h library, header file. So important observation here, we feed the address and variable here, and we use the same format specifiers you've learned in printf. Okay, so we've taken some examples. I would encourage you to test them. And then now use Scanf, since you know how to get input from a user, you can very simply write programs like this, which is more dynamic now. The radius and height are not inside your program, but it is from a user. Okay, and then we've seen the control for if else. So this meeting is going to end now. I will start the same meeting again. If you have any query, you can join. If you are happy, then that's fine. I will send the pre-recorded video later. Okay, so see you in a few minutes.